We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. F it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the program, no matter where in the world you are today. I don't normally stream over to YouTube. I don't like streaming over to YouTube, but I want to talk about this stuff, and I want to rant. You know, most of this video is going to be about Matt Walsh and Matt Walsh's takes on things, because he's the most reasonable conservative I can think of when it comes to this stuff. Even in his video that he released yesterday, I think it was, maybe earlier today, he said, you know something, the red pill, I see their argument. I see where they're coming from. Now, if you can get Matt Walsh to start saying, all right, maybe these guys have something. Maybe they're onto something. We're at least starting to win the war against these soft conservatives that don't understand how the world works. So I do agree with Matt on some of his political takes and some of his world takes, but none of them get relationships right, because they view the world. They never. Let me just. What's a good way to put this? They view the world as a conservative married man that's doing well and has a wife and has 6 children and life is good, and they can't step out of themselves long enough to see the rest of the world around them. And their bubble's very small when it comes to these relationships. They can even admit the laws are against men, and women can too easily sue men, and women can be the 100% at fault, and we should need to change the laws. If they just stop there, they'd be okay. But every single time they say, but repopulation of the earth, birth rate crisis, collapse of society, we need to have marriage, we need to have kids, we need to have blah, 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 blah. And every time they fail. Every time. But I am going to go over the scandal a little bit, because I want to give you a background, because I'm not into scandal crap. I'm really not. I don't care if 2 YouTubers decide to hook up and start banging each other behind the scenes. I don't care. That is not my wheelhouse. I don't care what these people do with their lives. Most of them are insufferable and unlikable, just like me. I'm a very insufferable, unlikable person as well. But it is important to talk about this stuff. Today's sponsor is me. I'm sponsoring myself. Don't forget, for those of you on YouTube, my channel is Odd Man Out News here on YouTube. So I know a lot of you say I'm not doing Rumble. I'm not going over your local site, your community, where we're behind a paywall and we do lots of fun things and it's really awesome. And there's a great group of people and blah, blah, blah. You're going to stick on YouTube. Go over to Odd Man Out News. Some of my videos over there now are getting as many views as my badly viewed videos on Better Bachelor. So my best Odd Man Out News are about the same number of views as my worst Better Bachelor videos. So people like the content. If you like my content, go check it out. I'm just not talking about quote unquote men's issues. I'm talking about woke and DEI and all the other crap I talk about, but it's more news focused. So I put it over there. I think you will like it. If you guys know Aaron Clary, he wrote the book of Numbers, and I'm going to go over this. This is not a sponsored segment. Aaron and I are just kind of buddies, and he didn't give me any money to talk about this, but I bring this up because of a reason. Aaron Clary wrote a book of Numbers, and he broke down the statistics of finding a good woman for a conservative, for an open-minded guy, for basically somebody that's not a lunatic left. And he broke it down by, let's just take 50% of the population, or here in the United States, 70% of women, and throw them out because they're left-leaning, they're liberal, they're progressive, they're all the things that are not traditional or conservative or letting men lead the household. Throw them out. Now you got 30% of women left. Okay, throw out the fat ones, because a lot of guys don't like the big girls. Okay, there's another 70% of that 30%. What do you have left? 10% of women? All right, let's take away the ones with the tattoos and the nose earrings and the ones that don't want to be mothers, and the ones that want to be professional, they want to work instead of be stay-at-home mom. You're down to less than 1% of women that really would probably be a good match for guys like us, if we're just being real about it. And he broke this down. Now, he does have a Better Bachelor edition where I wrote a foreword for it, because he said, hey, do you want to write a foreword for my book? Sure. And I wrote one up and I sent it to him, and he said, you write like a third grader. And I said, well, you asked me. So he fixed it up and cleaned it up a little bit. My thoughts are the intro to this book, not my writing, because I write like a 4-year-old. So let's get to the salt and pepper of this, the nitty gritty. There's a guy named Milo Yiannopoulos. He's a very strange person. He is conservative. He's very mean. He is at one point in time a flaming gay guy. Now apparently he's not anymore. I don't know what his relationship stuff. I don't care. He's very out there, though. He's a very very out there individual. But he apparently knows Elijah very well, and he texts back and forth. And this is about Elijah Schaffer, which is the YouTube content creator in question. And it's about a woman named Sarah Stock. And basically what happened, and I'm going to read down through some of the back and forth and some of the information so you have a good background of where we're coming from. Elijah Schaffer has a YouTube channel. He did news. Apparently he likes to party with the booger sugar, if you know what I'm saying. Little rocket candy for the nose. He likes to drink, and he got himself in a bit of a dark place. He is married, and he has a kid. That's half of this equation. The other half of this equation is a YouTuber / content creator named Sarah Stock, who was single and engaged. And she maintained to her husband that she was a virgin, and she was going to stay that way up until the day that they were married. Then they get married. But come to find out, she didn't have her V card like she said she did. She was sleeping and hooking up with Elijah Schaffer 6 months before she got married to her husband. And there might have been a pregnancy scare and a baby deletion where Schaffer might, allegedly, have gotten her pregnant. Now, I don't have proof of any of this stuff. Everything I say is allegedly. I'm just going off the dirt and the grime that is on the internet. But this has gone so viral for a couple different groups. Number one, everybody that is on the left says, haha, tradcons are idiots. No such thing as a tradcon, or they're lying to you. The tradcons are very upset, the men, because they're saying, see, these women on the internet that say they're conservative are not really conservative. I've said this many times. You guys have said this many times. There's no such thing as a conservative woman, a truly conservative woman that is on the internet or putting out content, any type of content. If she's just not a lurker that uses social media to look at cooking recipes, then there's probably a bad sign. Then there's the red pill guys like myself, Sneeko, probably Rolo's. I haven't seen all the content out there, but I'm sure Coach Greg Adams and Rolo Tomasi and all the other red pill guys are like, ha, we told you that women will say to a man that their body count is low or nothing, or that they're saving themselves for marriage because they're a good, clean little girl. And come to find out, they're monsters. They just lie because they can't help themselves from being these monsters and sleeping around and hooking up and having all the fun. But then they will lie to a man because they want the man to respect them and to care for them. Now, the person really that is the one that's catching all the fallout and is the worst one affected in all of this stuff is the guy that thought he was marrying a woman with her V card. In other words, Sarah Stock's husband, because she professed that she was this saintly, wonderful, conservative woman with a count of 0, and I'm saving it all for you. And come to find out she'd been tore up from the floor up and maybe even got knocked up by Elijah. That's the real, And the reason why I think this is such a big story is, or at least in my mind, it's a big story, is because I could see myself being Sarah Stock's husband. I could see myself being that guy as a younger man. Not now. I wouldn't get married now. But as a younger man, I think a lot of guys could say, but he did everything right. She said she went to church. She went to mass. She was involved in conservative politics. She said she was holding herself out for marriage and that she had her V card. This is the perfect woman. I've found a unicorn. I've found a perfect woman. And come to find out, she just lied about all of it. So that's where the story stands. I'm going to go down through some of Milo's stuff, and then we're going to jump over to, I've got about 13 minutes of Matt Walsh. I have to get into a pretend debate with Matt Walsh, because Matt Walsh says, oh, I debate these red pill guys all the time. And what does he do? He goes on Twitter and gets in arguments with accounts that are like MGTOW guys that have 13 followers that haven't formed an articulate way to express these thoughts. I've done 1,500 videos. I'm very practiced at the data. I've memorized it. Talking points. I've gone over all this stuff. And Matt Walsh still has yet to sit down with somebody and have an actual debate. And at one point, if you guys remember, I won the Daily Wire's Razor contest, and they gave me $250,000. And then after taxes, it ended up being like $140,000. And I tucked that in a bank account where it's been accruing interest and not much interest, 3 to 5% over the last like 3 years, I think it's been now. And it's sitting waiting for me to buy land. And I still plan to buy land, of course, and put that towards the men's retreat. That is happening. I think that's happening this spring. I've got a cargo trailer that I'm going to be converting into a trailer that you could live off grid on, because I want to show you guys how you could buy a piece of land and convert a little trailer cheaply. That's something you could live on a piece of land off grid. Well, anyway, after I do that trailer conversion, my fat ass is going to be driving around the country looking at properties. I don't want to buy the next one just over the internet. I did that with a property I'm on now, and unfortunately, 2/3 of the land is not really usable because it goes down hills and stuff. So anyway, but when I won that contest, I was supposed to get an interview from the Daily Wire. And the Daily Wire was like, it's midterms. So I guess that's 4 years ago now, 3.5 years ago, because they said, oh, we're coming up on midterms. And, our crew's really busy talking about politics, but we'll get back to you. And then they never got back to me. Shocking. So none of them will sit down and actually now they'll interview Nala Fitness, former Only Fools starfish shower. They'll bring her on Michael Knowles and interview her because she's suddenly found the Lord. They'll interview her 2 or 3 times. They'll have plenty of discussions with people like that, but they won't talk to us. And mostly I think it's because I think they'll lose. I think they'll know they'll lose the argument, if I'm just to be honest. I think they know they'll lose the argument. And so I never got my communication with those guys. So that's where we'll wrap things up, is arguing with an imaginary Matt Walsh, which is he's the stand-in for all conservatives, because he's the closest, I think, to understanding men's issues. I think he's the closest, but he still gets it wrong. And if I can't, I'm trying to use Matt Walsh as the steel man argument for conservatives, because I could easily blow the Ben Shapiro's out of the water. I could easily blow the, at one point in time, I could say I could blow out Steven Crowder, but Steven Crowder has gone through the divorce. He's gone through the child custody, and he's admitted, actually, the red pill guys are right. So I think Steven Crowder would be on my side in that debate. So anyway, Matt Walsh's latest video is going to be our steelman argument for this stuff. Okay, so Milo, anyway. So Sarah Stock, he said in February 2025, Sarah Stock, I keep wanting to say Strock. In February 2025, Sarah Stock and Elijah Schaefer began. Now, all this is alleged. So if I'm not going to say alleged every 15 seconds, everything I say after this point in time about these two individuals is alleged because I don't have any firsthand knowledge, but I'm not going to repeat myself 100 times. Sarah Stock and Elijah Schaefer began sleeping together. The affair ended on the day she got engaged about 6 months later, and that time they experienced multiple pregnancy scares. It is alleged by one former acquaintance that Sarah at least got one baby deletion. Stock and Schaefer had sex on the day they met at the CPAC conference, which is a conservative PAC, I guess, conservative PAC, you could say. And I forget what PAC stands for. But they went to CPAC, which is a conservative meeting of the minds where they all get up on stage and they all clap and they all cheer on the conservative movement. And they met there and apparently started sleeping together from day one. Now, if you notice on my thumbnail, I have a little picture of Elijah here. And now, this was on the internet. I did not go searching for this. This was in my internet feed. So before you give me a hard time for trying to search for Elijah Schaefer without his shirt on, that is not me. This was in my face on X. But apparently, Elijah is in really good shape. And I didn't know this. But Elijah's kind of a jack dude. He's not bad looking. And apparently she saw this and was like, I need me some beefcake. So she decides, I'm going to start hooking up with him the day they meet. In a recording of Stock confessing the affair, she claims a large amount of the alcohol was involved because women don't take accountability. She has to blame it on something or someone else. They told each other they loved each other. Elijah told her he was thinking of leaving his wife for her. Now, they do have the audio recording. I'll play a little bit of it so you can hear that this is actually out there. It's not just hearsay.
Take any accountability at all because, like,
let me pause this and crank up the volume because it's a bad, quiet recording. Let's do this again from the beginning, hopefully.
Not take any accountability at all because, like, it obviously was my fault too. What happened between us, but even that was like not.
Okay, so you can hear. She says, yeah, some of it was my fault, but it led blah, blah, blah. Somebody made a transcript of it because it's the internet, and this is what bored people with ADHD do. Thank you to all my people on the spectrum. And it starts off not to take any accountability at all, but because it's obviously was my fault too, what happened between us. But even that was not I don't know. I felt like it was he got me very intoxicated. I don't even remember most of it. And I was thinking back because it was CPAC at 2 nights. You're there in the second night. I was breaking out like a rash, and then he gave me some Benadryl, and then I had some drinks, and that's probably why I quote unquote blacked out. Okay, so let's steel man the argument, because this is what I like to do. I always try to find the strongest argument in anything. Okay, you went to CPAC. He gave you some Benadryl. You had too many drinks. You forgot what happened. And you ended up hooking up with him. You lost your... Now, how you lose your V card, if it's that valuable, but let's just steel man this and say she did black out and he took advantage of her. I got to do this without yelling because I don't want to blow your ears out. So let me just... How did you keep banging him for the next 6 months then? Serious question. How did you end up banging him for the next 6 months then, right up until you got married? We're waiting. See, that's the problem where these tales and these excuses and this BS comes, is when you say, okay, I hear you on that. I'd like to hand you a pass for that. Now explain the next 5 months and 29 days of this 6 months affair. Explain that, please. I got a button for that. Let's see. How about this one? There's no excuse. He spread banana peels all over his driveway, and every time I went to go over and hang out with him for work, I slept and kept falling on his lap. Oopsie. So anyway, Stock alleges Schaefer got me very blah, blah, blah. We read that. Schaefer continued the question. Okay. So Schaefer consistently questions Stock's faith at the same time. So in other words, he's saying, okay, you're supposed to be this very conservative religious girl, and you're supposed to have your V card, but you're also continuingly to sleep with me, and you're engaged, and you went in front of a priest. I think was it a priest or a pope? Anyway, there's an image out there. Matt Walsh talks about it, where she got a blessing from the church. So the whole thing is a hot mess, okay? And there's so much more to this. All you have to do is go to, here's the picture of her, where she says, I'm officially Catholic. So you converted, but, and anyway, in the Matt Walsh video, he plays a lot of this stuff. I left it in there. Anyway, so all this happens, and then this is her response to all the allegations. And we're getting to the Matt Walsh part here in just a second. I'm not trying to drag this out, but if you're like me and you don't follow this stuff, you might be like, I don't know what is going on. So I just want to make sure we set the stage, as it were, for the play. Anyway, so Sarah, now married and with a last name of Setka, this was her response 2 days ago when all of these allegations came out. Now, as I've said a million times, guys, say it with me, everybody. Don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do, right? 100% of the time, watch what they do, not what they say. If somebody came out with false allegations against me, or was lying about me, or was making up things about me, or whatever else you want to call it, okay? If somebody came out, and I really was a pure woman who was a church-going person, and Milo Yiannopoulos drops all these bombs on me, my statement would be the following. Milo Yiannopoulos is a huge liar. I'm taking him to court. I'm suing him for defamation. I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to take him for every single penny he has. That's what an innocent woman would do, in my opinion. I think you can agree with that. What does she do? She comes out and makes this statement before an hour or two later, completely deleting her social media accounts. Okay, like her Instagram, maybe her YouTube. I didn't check on that. She deleted her X account. She nuked it all. But this is her post before she nuked her entire livelihood on the internet. Because remember, she was a content creator. She said, a lot of what has been said about me is completely untrue. That being said, there are mistakes, unwise decisions I've made that I deeply regret. I have sinned. I apologize to everyone who's been scandalized by this. Please pray, logging off for me now, and alt-click delete, yeet, and she's gone. Now, in my opinion, just in my opinion, this does not sound good for her. This is not what a person that really wasn't involved in a scandal would say. You don't just say, oopsie doopsie, everybody's lying about me, but I'm going to run away now. Bye. No, you're caught out. And that's my take on this. So Matt Walsh comes out with his video today and, or yesterday, whenever this dropped. And I listened to the first 35 minutes of it when he talked about this. I've sped this up by 25% and chopped it down to about 13 minutes, but I left most of his argument in here. The only thing I deleted is he had a small segment talking about Andrew Tate. Because for some reason, and this is another thing that drives me absolutely crazy about quote-unquote red pill manosphere, etc., is the default go-to for the left, for the right, for everybody is Andrew Tate. And to me, that's like, what would be a good, that's like, I want to have a conversation with a guy that enjoys beer. And so you go down to your local winery or whatever, and you find the town drunk. And that's who you're going to use as your example of a guy that likes beer. You literally are using the most aggressive, over-the-top, biggest voice on this stuff, instead of listening to the literal millions of other men that listen to this kind of content. You go to the biggest I won't say worst, but you go to the biggest, most aggressive guy in the place and say, see, everybody, this is what red pill manosphere is about. And it's not. So this is why I took that out, because otherwise I'd just be yelling at Matt Walsh some more. Let me very quickly read the lives before they disappear from YouTube. Ken Rose says $2. Thank you, sir. Thumbs up. Thank you. Dorian says, been following you since you called yourself Liquid. Yeah, I didn't know what pseudonym I wanted to go by, because I figured I'd get a lot of blowback and doxing from feminists when I started my channel. And then after, I was like, well, I don't really like Liquid. It's just a stupid name I came up with. So I said, well, I'll just go by my military nickname. Now, if my real name got out there, I don't care. I'm not necessarily going to throw it out there, but I don't care. Benjamin says, welcome to Bachelor. Thank you, sir. Phone Off says, thank you. You're doing God's work. I don't know if I'm doing that, but I'm trying at least to warn men. B-Man says, B-Man the Champ says, hey, Joker, just wanted to say thank you for all you do. Thank you very much, sir. Saul says, I've been watching you since Yellow Bus Times. Yes, my bus conversion. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again, but we're going to do it in a smaller trailer. Been watching you since Yellow Bus Times. Thanks for your good content. P.S. Can I ask what happened to the bus? I converted the bus. It kept breaking down on me twice, the transmission. Ultimately, it cost me $3-4 grand. I could not, at the time, I was not making great money. I couldn't keep affording to fix it, so I donated it in Wyoming, in Casper, Wyoming. I donated it, and I was able to find a used RV place that would donate it for me. And from my understanding, they said a young couple bought it, put it up on their land, and it was using it as a tiny home. And I'm like, perfect. That's exactly what I was going to use it for, but good for them. Let's see. Baron says, you rock. Thank you very much, sir, for the $5. And for Yakuman, NOK, I don't know where NOK is from, 100. Thank you. Women will lie, then lie about their lies when the accountability's never really hit them until now, as men are fed up. And boy, are they crying over everything from TikTok to Instagram. You are correct, sir. And they always will. And then let me quickly read the Rumble and locals. Then we'll continue on unbroken until I'm done yelling at Matt Walsh. Ice Dragon says, Raging Golden Eagle calls them SJW Classic for a reason. Yeah, social justice warriors. Ispep says they even had frickin' Pope bless their wedding. What was that, the Pope, though? I don't know. Anyway, Matt talks about it, so I didn't give it much thought. Steamboat says, oh man, I'm 20 minutes late, but I bet it's your best 20 minutes ever. Of course, every 20 minutes I do is great. Skyline says, $5, thank you. It's okay to be a conservative man and use a woman for what she is. Nothing wrong with treating women as meat holes. If that's who they choose to be, don't be simp idiot. Well, there's a lot of women choosing to be, as you call them, meat holes recently. That is the problem. Okay, let's listen to Matt Walsh's steel-proof argument, the strongest argument in the world about relationships.
This has been interesting timing because it's a story that perfectly illustrates the counter-argument, the reason why so many young people are so reluctant to get married and have children in the first place. Now, as to the specifics of the scandal, I'll go into a few of the details in a moment, not because this is a drama channel, but because it's the kind of thing we must contend with if we want to make the case for marriage and family life. Now, if I were to try to do a monologue right now on that topic, all the comments would be, well, what about this? You see this scandal over here? This is exactly why we don't want to get married. So let's just, let's lean into that, as much as I hate that phrase. I think that those of us on the pro-family side, oftentimes, it's true to say, haven't done a good enough job of acknowledging and accounting for the enormous risks and downside to marriage that young people are confronting at increasing rates, no matter how hard they try to find a compatible, moral Christian spouse. This is the catch-22. Our culture is decaying. In order to stop the decay, we need people to form stable and loving families, but it's harder to form stable and loving families while the culture is decaying. Now, people in the red pill and so-called manosphere spaces have been making this point for a long time and have taken a lot of heat for it. I've had plenty of arguments with people on that side about this. Entire shows on Netflix have been written about how awful their opinions are and how they've created this manosphere that traffics in dangerous misogyny and so on. But, the truth is, when the writer's room at Netflix is so enraged about your views that they start putting you in their shows, then it means that you're on to something.
All right, I'll stop it here. So Matt Walsh is saying, something, okay, if the feminists hate them, They might be onto something. Yes, we know we're onto something. And number two, he is right to say, well, I'm going to tell you why marriage and relationships need to be done, and you need to have children, and you need to get married, and you need to procreate, and all the other things. I'm going to tell you this, but I do kind of have to talk about this because this looks really bad on conservatives. And the arguments that he's had with people that are red pill are on X, and they're small accounts. I don't think he's ever replied to anything I've ever posted. I've replied to him. I've retweeted him. I don't think he's ever said anything boo about me or any other of the men that call these conservatives out on these things. The issue that all of these guys run into, and he's going to explain it, so I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole too far, but I want you to keep this in the back of your mind as you listen to him, is they always say, okay, but here's what you need to do, as if it was all the man's decision. And that's where everything falls apart. If it were up to Joker or you or anybody else, and he said, okay, go find yourself a relationship. I could go down to a church, or I could go to a library, or I could go someplace where, quote unquote, good women hang out. And I could meet one, and I can take her out to coffee, and I could get to know her, and I could date her, and I could fall in love with her, and I could marry her. And then we'd have 4 children or whatever, and I'd have a happy family. I'd retire in the house in the hill with a picket fence, and I'd have every Christmas would be a home filled with loving family and children and grandchildren, and they'd all love me, and it'd be so wonderful. And then on my deathbed, as I'm holding my wife of 52 years' hand, and all the kids and grandkids, so many children, they can't even fill the hospital room where I'm slowly passing to meet my maker. There'd be so much love in this room. And as I slip off into eternity, I will feel loved, and I feel my life's value and all the joy. Really? Really? We could have that if it was in our control. But this is the point that all the conservatives put on their little blinders, and they forget one big part of this equation is that it's not up to us. Women are given a bailout clause. A woman can cheat, then she can lie, then she can have a kid by another dude, pop it out, lie to you that it's yours. A DNA test at 3 years old will prove that it's not your kid, and you still have to pay child support, and you still have to give her alimony or give her something. That's the part, all of them, because they have zero argument for it. There is zero way to save that part of the argument. So then they have to default, and I'm sure I'll repeat myself again as I rant on this later. The part that they always forget about is that it's not up to us. So then they default to, well, you just need to pick a good woman. Well, we're going to get into that. That's next.
It's not always enough to say that you should date a woman who goes to church, who says that she opposes abortion, who says that she's never slept with anyone outside of marriage, spends every day talking about conservative principles for a living, and who will, in her case, literally stand by your side in front of the Pope as he blesses both of you. Now, a woman can do all those things and convince you that she means every word of what she's saying, that she'll be a fantastic mother to your children, and then you find out one day that, in fact, she was lying to you the whole time. She was actually having an affair with her boss behind your back. She was grinning as the Pope blessed your relationship while she was thinking about her other boyfriend. And here's the thing. If you don't learn the truth soon enough, then she could, not too far in the future, walk away with half of your assets, including your house, along with alimony for life.
Okay. So Matt beautifully describes what happened to Sarah Stock's husband. She said she had her V card. She was a conservative influencer. She went to church. She was involved in conservative politics. She said all the right things. She did. Well, I mean, as far as he knew, she did all the right things. And Matt here looks you dead in the eye and said, yep, a woman can lie to you about all these things and you completely miss it. Now, as me, as you, our answer is, yeah, we told you. If a woman will go to these depths to trick you and sleep like a baby at night while she's hooking up with her boss and maybe getting pregnant by her boss behind your back, how am I to know? Now, the answer for many men that let's go flip to the other side of the argument. Let's go ahead and talk about Andrew Tate for a minute. Andrew Tate, his answer would be, you need to control your women. Now, maybe I'm being too hard on him, but I've heard a lot of Andrew Tate's stuff. And Andrew Tate might say, you need to control your women. You need to know who she's talking to. You need to be able to go through her phone. You need to be able to put a tracking device on her car when she leaves the house. You need to have her locked down and tied down because any type of woman could lie to you. Now, Matt would say, well, that's going too far. Okay, but in the case of Sarah Stock's husband, the guy that got cheated on, the guy that thought he was getting a pure woman with a count of, a body count of 0, the guy that thought he was getting a conservative woman, please answer me this, because this is the thing no conservative can ever answer. So please, Matt Walshes of the world, answer me this. How do you know? How do you know? Just asking her? Feeling her out? Watching her go to church? Watching her go to Turning Point, or excuse me, CPAC? Watching her getting a blessing for the wedding from Charlie Kirk? Watching her come home after she was at work late at night because she was dedicated to her job? Do I have to say that I don't trust her? Do I have to say that? No, then what do I do? That's the billion-dollar question none of these conservatives can ever answer. What is the answer, Matt Walsh? How do I prove it? And his answer is, well, you can't, which is what we say. So once again, he is saying we're correct. He is saying the red pill guys or the guys that don't want to get married or the guys that he's saying we're right. Is somebody spamming over there? Okay, yeah, let me just bump somebody to mod. Now if I'm bumping you to, I'm just going to bump you to, don't be crazy on me, Ralph. Don't do anything crazy on me. I just don't have any mods over on YouTube because I never stream over there other than BubX, and I don't know where he is today. All right, so Matt can't prove us wrong. So that if you can't prove us wrong and you can't argue with our argument that there's without spying or locking down a woman or tracking her everything else, then how do we know? There's no way to tell. Now, I'm going to back this up just a little bit because I want to hear this part of the argument again. Then we're going to keep rolling forward. But Matt's basically admitting you can do everything right as a man and still get fooled. That's what Matt's saying. He's saying we're right. He's saying we're correct.
Thinking about her other boyfriend. And here's the thing. If you don't learn the truth soon enough, then she could, not too far in the future, walk away with half of your assets, including your house, along with alimony for life. This is not some fantastical hypothetical scenario. It's what apparently happened to the man who was engaged to Sarah Stock, who briefly went by the name Sarah Setka. Sarah's a relative newcomer in the whole trad woman conservative influencer space. Now, I'm not prepared to say as many have.
Okay, let me back that up just a sec. That is the Pope.
Sarah's a relative newcomer in the whole trad woman conservative influencer space.
Okay, yep, that is a picture of the Pope. So that wasn't just some random dude. Here's Mr. Sitka or whatever is the guy that married her. Here's them getting a blessing from the Pope, and it's not like, like here would be a warning sign he might have recognized. The Pope comes forward and he says, we bless this marriage, and she explodes into flame. That would have been a telltale sign. But with a smile on her face, with love and blessing in her heart, she got the okay from the big guy, the biggest guy in the Catholic Church, and slept like a baby that night, knowing everything she did. She didn't see, there was no point of regret. There was no point of unhappiness. There was no point of losing any sleep for her through any of this until she got caught. That's the magic ticket. So if none of this had come out and she hadn't get caught, she'd still be married to him. She'd still be wanting to have his baby. She'd still be saying she was intact their wedding night. And she'd, it's not like she was tossing and turning in sleep. It's not like she was 200 pounds and lost 100 pounds out of worry and she couldn't eat any food and she could, so stressed all the time because of the lies I've told and I'm going to get caught no, she was like, nah, I'm good. I sleep like a baby. So again, I ask Matt, if a woman will do all these things, how would you know? And they can never answer that because there is no answer. If a woman wants to cheat on you, she will find a way. She will say, okay, let me just, again, I want to steel man this for Matt Walsh over here. Okay, your wife she goes to the gym to work out. She goes to Pilates class or yoga class. And some guy hits on her and starts chatting her up and she ends up liking him. How do you know? Do I need to control my woman to the point that she can't leave the house on her own, Matt Walsh? I know his answer. His answer is no, you need to trust your wife. You can't follow her. You can't lock her down. You can't track her. You can't spy on her. I agree with you on that. We're in agreement, Matt Walsh. Now, here's my question. It's all on her. This is all her control. She must be a good, pure, loving, faithful, honest woman. Hey, Matt Walsh, if I'm going to church and I'm meeting a woman that says she's a pure, good, faithful, honest woman, and even that woman is cheating and lying, then where do you find the good ones? She was found in church. She converted to Christianity. She was blessed by a pope. She slept like a baby at night. So where do we find all these great women, Matt Walsh? What are the triggers that I need to look for as a man? And this is why this controversy is so damning to these conservative guys. Because in the past, whether it was Ben Shapiro, whether it was Michael Knowles, and I'm using Daily Wire because they're the most popular ones, whether it was Michael Knowles, whether it was Ben Shapiro, if I said, okay, tell me where can I look, I'm a 26-year-old guy. I do want a family. I do want to get married. Where should I look for a good woman, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro? Well, first of all, you want a woman that's conservative. You want her to go to church. You want her to love the same God you do, be a God-fearing woman. You want to find out she doesn't have a lot of damage for her past, so she hasn't been around a lot. She hasn't been in a lot of long-term relationships. And then you date her for a long time. If she makes you wait until marriage, that's a good sign. She goes and gets blessed by, okay, I did all that, and she still went out and cheated and maybe got pregnant by another guy behind my back and then slept like a baby. Now what? Balls in your court, gentlemen. It's go for it. 1, 2, 3, go. And here Matt Walsh is like, well, okay, actually, okay. Yeah, I mean, it can happen sometimes. Sarah Stock's husband, this, I forget what his name is. I got the picture here. Mr. Setka did everything in the world right. He played by the rule book and he still lost. And she's supposedly one of these 1%er women. Now, what about the other 99% of women that are liberal or left-leaning or progressive or don't want children or are work boss or have, slept with 50 dudes before leaving? What about all of them? Because that's everything else. We're looking at the 1%er and the 1%er fucked up. So now what? And the thing is, Matt doesn't have an answer. None of them have an answer. None of them can have an answer because their poster child, the unicorn that is this wonderful conservative, blah, 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 blah. She turned out to be just as bad as the rest. Now where do you go, Matt Walsh? Now where do you go, all you other conservatives? You lose. We win. We were right again. That if a woman just out of the blue decides to do something, you're effed. There's nothing you can do about it aside from doing what the Tates of the world say, which is no vacations without your man, no girls' night out without your man, no having any interaction with males, including male coworkers, no staying late at work, no going to the gym by yourself. You literally have to put a woman in a cage to guarantee it doesn't happen to you. Because if you select for all the things that supposedly get you a great woman, you still get a bad one. There's no winning the game. And this is the proof is right here. And that's why this story has gone viral, because my man, Mr. Setka, did all the right things and he still lost.
Now, I'm not prepared to say, as many have, that her conversion was a scam and she never meant anything she said. It was all a big ruse. I can't say that. I can't see inside her soul. Only God can figure that out. It's perfectly possible for a person to profess a certain belief and hold that belief and yet act contrary to it. But we all do that to some extent because we are all sinners. And yet it's also clear that Sarah was also putting together a carefully crafted image. Before she was engaged, she appeared on a podcast in which she claimed that she would abstain from sex until marriage, in contrast to some other women on the panel who openly admitted that they were extremely promiscuous. Watch.
You're also religious, correct?
Yeah, I'm a Christian.
Are you waiting until marriage?
Yeah.
Have you always waited till marriage?
Yes.
You both are virgins, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
No shame, just...
Yeah.
Okay,
Right
cool.
as I said yes.
What's your body count?
0. 0. 0.
Okay. We're getting all the right answers, Matt. And Matt's like, yeah, well, she lied. Well, then how do we know they're not lying? You don't. You don't.
Whoa.
That's a
Okay.
lot of virgins.
Jake.
Surrounded by purity here. I feel it rubbing off on me.
The point is that this story is not the exception. It's not happening out of nowhere.
Wait. What's that you say, Matt? What? Gotcha, bitch. I wish I could. I wish I had the Dave Chappelle. Gotcha. Because you just did it, buddy. Let me just line it up here a second. He admits it. He admits it.
Me.
The point is that this story is not the exception. It's not happening out of nowhere.
It's not the exception. He even admits this is not the exception. It's not happening out of nowhere.
There's nothing aberrant about it. As we talked about yesterday, Elijah Schaefer's behavior is all too common among some men, and Sarah's stock is all too representative of how some women, though certainly not all, think and behave these days.
Notice he only added the some, not all, to talking about Sarah. He could have said for Elijah, some men act like this, but not all. And for Sarah, some women act like this, but not all. But he only added the but not all to Sarah. He didn't add that to the Elijah part. It's very, if you become really good at listening to people, you catch this kind of thing. Now, maybe I'm a little bit on the spectrum when it comes to this stuff, but I hear when people use things differently. Some guys are like this. Some women are like this too, but not all women. What about not all men? He leaves that out. So there is a bias in here that Matt doesn't even realize he has, number one. But number two, Matt even says out of his own mouth, his own bearded, lovely mouth, he says, it's a concocted story and people lie. And it's not that all that uncommon that people will lie to hide their bad paths, their bad pasts. It's not that uncommon. Okay, then how do we know? Well, you got to know when they're lying. Well, I'm not magic. How am I supposed to know when someone's lying and concocting a fairy tale? I'm going to let him continue through this. But I really wanted to call him out on that. Because out of his own mouth, he says, people are going to lie to you. These women will lie to you. It's not that rare. This is happening all the time. Then Matt, you're proving my point. That you can't know, you don't know, you won't know until it's too late. And then it's too late. You're already risking half your stuff, losing your child custody care, all the rest of it.
The point is that this story is not the exception. It's not happening out of nowhere. There's nothing aberrant about it. As we talked about yesterday, Elijah Schaefer's behavior is all too common among some men, and Sarah Stock is all too representative of how some women, though certainly not all, think and behave these days. These types of women, they don't see men as potential husbands to whom they will devote themselves or for whom they will be a loyal and loving helpmate. They see men as tools they can use dishonestly for a specific purpose. I consider the fact that as of the most recent data, roughly 70% of divorces are initiated by women. That's according to research from the American Sociological Association, but plenty of other sources agree on that point. In fact, the number rises to between 80 and 90% when you only look at highly educated women. Here's a quote from the American Sociological Association, to give you an idea of how they frame the data. Quote, study author Michael Rosenfeld, an associate professor of sociology at Stanford University, found that women initiated 69% of all divorces compared to 31% of men. They don't blame men for cheating on their spouses because according to the data, that's not what's actually driving the high rates of divorces initiated by women. But they also know they can't blame women because every academic, without exception, is forced to embrace feminism as a religion. So they settle on blaming the institution of marriage itself. And yet if you ask women, they'll tell you exactly why they're getting divorced. If you take a look at the data, what it tells you is that the primary reasons that women give for divorcing their husbands include that they feel they aren't getting enough attention, their husband is holding back their career, that they, quote, grew apart. In other words, the woman got bored.
I don't know. Matt Walsh is apparently red pill. Matt just did one of my videos from 4 years ago. That's what Matt just did. Matt just did a video. Matt just did a Better Bachelor video from 4 years ago. So here's the question that I beg for Matt to answer, and he never can. He says the majority of divorces, 70%, are initiated by women, not men. Only 30% of divorces initiated by men, which shows it's the women that are breaking and ending the marriage. My question is, Matt, as a married man, how do I stop them from leaving? Because the next stats, he says, are women are leaving out of boredom. Matt, as a married man who doesn't want to get divorced, how do I avoid getting divorced when the only thing I did wrong was that my wife got bored? How do I keep her? We're waiting. They don't have an answer for that. He never has an answer for that. None of them have an answer for that. Well, you gotta be entertaining and you gotta dance like a monkey and you need to take her on more and more expensive vacations and take her out for dinner and make sure you coddle her and she's the center of the world and she's the most amazing person. You must kiss her ass is basically what he's saying. Now, I know not all of you listen to Coach Greg Adams. Coach Greg Adams, and there used to be a guy here on YouTube. I know some of you will know of this name. The guy's name was called Turd Flinging Monkey. Yes, that was the name of a YouTuber here for a long time, but he got kicked off of YouTube because he had misogynistic views. But both of these guys multiple times had said, here's the problem with dating women and their quote unquote boredom. You take a woman out for coffee. She enjoys it. So you want to go on another date. Well, you can't take her out to coffee. You must escalate just a little bit. We've already done coffee. Coffee is boring. Let's go out to dinner. Okay, I'll take you to, what's your favorite food? Mexican. I'm going to take you to your favorite Mexican restaurant. We ate there. She loved it. Hey, honey, do you want to go out to dinner? Sure. You take her to the Mexican restaurant again. It's her favorite. And then you take her to the favorite Mexican restaurant again. By the fifth or sixth time, she says, can we go somewhere else? I'm tired of Mexican. And you have to take her to a different restaurant and a different place and a different vacation and a different. And each time it has to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Because if now she's used to, like for your first, let's say for your, 1 month dating, you go out to a nice, like a decent restaurant for 1 month of dating. And for a year dating, maybe you get her a nice little gift. By your 10th year anniversary, you buy her diamonds. Do you think for the 11th anniversary, you take her out for coffee, she's going to be grateful? Or is she going to say, last year you took me out for diamonds, and this year you're only taking me out for coffee? What? Like, did I do something wrong? This isn't bigger or better than the last thing we did. It's always got to be more. Well, here's the challenge with that. Eventually, no matter how much more and how much bigger, and she's bored with you. There's no new experiences. There's no new excitement. There's nothing new with you, no matter how many hoops you jump through. And so she leaves, and she's bored. And then she goes and finds somebody else. How do you stop that, Matt Walsh? If out of your own mouth, and I'll keep this playing here in a second, if out of your own mouth you say 70% of these women, 90% that are educated, leave, and the number one reason is they basically get bored, how do I stop that? And Matt Walsh's answer is, you can't. Then you've basically just swallowed lead in your argument of why to get married. Because my answer to, well, you can't. Well, what's a guy got left to do? It's the end of the road for that guy. They never have any answer for that.
And like Sarah Stock, apparently, they wanted to try something new. And they convinced themselves that there's nothing wrong with, giving another man a try. And there's nothing stopping these women from walking into a courtroom, telling the judge they're bored, and taking 50% of their husband's assets, along with alimony. Even in conservative states, they can get away with that. They can seize your home. They can seize your retirement account. They don't even have to lie about what they're doing. I mean, that's where the law is right now. So why haven't any conservative states abolished no-fault divorce? Or at the very least, why haven't more states abolished the idea that women are entitled to 50% of their husband's assets, even if they've been cheating on him the entire time? As far as I can tell, in the vast majority of states, whether they're community property states or not, a woman can cheat on her husband and still receive half his assets. There are exceptions, including Texas, but this is the norm, and that needs to change. In most cases, women should get $0 if they initiate a divorce. In most cases, they should get nothing. In fact, in many cases, they should be fined for wasting the man's time. That's not a punitive solution. It's one we obviously need because the current system is pathological in how it destroys the lives of innocent young men. In fact, we should really be discussing criminal penalties for adultery. There'd be nothing unusual historically about dispensing prison time or fines or even corporal punishment for adulterers. What's unusual is having no such penalties in place at all. We are one of the few societies in history to not treat adultery as a criminal matter, and I see no evidence that our approach is in any way superior or brings about better results at all.
Okay. So Matt, once again, is doing a Better Bachelor video from 4 years ago. We can't stop them. We can't stop them from leaving us. We can't accurately determine whether they're going to stay with us in the first place. So it means they can leave us whenever they want. Then when they decide to leave us whenever they want, they do it because they're bored. And then when they do it because they're bored, we still get penalized by losing half of our money. We can lose custody of the kids. And the state does nothing to protect men. Matt just basically regurgitated every red pill talking point from the last 5 years. And at the end of this is Matt's big discovery, we need to change the laws. I don't hear Matt saying, the Daily Wire, if you don't know, Matt Walsh came out with his movie, What is a Woman? That was Matt Walsh's. And then he did another one about the LGHD TV community. He did two movies on that subject because he said this is one of the most important battles of our time, is to get rid of this craziness and this indoctrination in our schools and in our government, and we just need to get rid of it. And this is the dozenth or more time that I hear conservatives, whether it's conservative politicians or conservative YouTubers or podcasters, whatever, saying, we need to fix marriage. We need to change these laws. We need the birth rates to go up. We need, women are much more conservative and don't vote for all the craziness. All we have to do is get them to be conservative and get married. When's Matt Walsh's big push on Capitol Hill? Because he does have the ear of the Tennessee governor. He does have the ear of Tennessee senators. He's gotten many laws passed because he and the rest of Daily Wire has such big followings that when they all start screaming at the top of their lungs, people in Tennessee did listen, and some of our laws did change. Matt, I'm still waiting for you and the rest of the Daily Wire crew to go on a campaign for changing marriage laws, for changing divorce laws, for changing child custody laws. Where's your voice? Because your voice is massive. I've seen them make real world changes. They sued, the Daily Wire sued the Biden administration over mandatory COVID jabs for employees, and they won. Daily Wire won. They have the funding. They have the willpower. They have the ear of the government. Matt, where is your campaign to fix the laws for divorce? I mean, you're such a champion. You want to fix the population issue. You want to fix these young men not getting married. Where are you? He's nowhere. So through all of this, he admits the entire game is rigged against men. You can't vet them. You can't tell if they're telling the truth. You can't stop them from leaving you and divorcing you because you're bored. The laws are against you. You could child custody cases. The woman can cheat. The woman can falsely accuse you. They can do all these things. Men, boy, this is horrible. Well, let's listen to Matt's answer. It's coming up in a moment. I'll let him continue on his rant. Let's listen to Matt's answer because it is groundbreaking.
And now, with all that said, how could I, after acknowledging these serious pitfalls, still promote marriage and family life? That's the question, and it's a fair one. I saw a recent clip of Andrew Tate posing this exact conundrum, as he has many times. Here's just the latest example. Watch.
How big of an idiot is a guy that doesn't get a prenup?
How big of an idiot is a guy who gets married?
Oh, my girl is over there, my boy.
Yeah.
He's waiting on that.
Well, I'm sorry, but
So are you suggesting that marriage is out of the picture?
What do you gain? Non-emotional, like there's men who get married and they go, it's important because I love her. If you want to make emotional decisions, if you want to enter the world of emotional decisions with women, if you want to roll in the mud with a pig and lose, then that's fine. Yeah. But as a man, it's your job to be logical. And I'm sitting here saying, I'm not anti-marriage. Just show me what I get. Yeah. You're asking me to agree to give away half my stuff if I argue with anyone at any point in the future forever. And I'm going to be publicly humiliated over the internet when her ex-boyfriend, who's silly, laughs that I'm walking her down the aisle in a white dress. Okay, cool. So what do I get?
So it's a fair logical question. I've already acknowledged that those of us on the pro-marriage side can sometimes be too quick to discount the possibility that a young man gets married and winds up humiliated, betrayed, and broke because of it. We sometimes talk about marriage as though the divorce rate were 0%. On the other side, though, people like Tate talk about marriage as though the divorce rate were 100%, as if no couple in history has ever managed to stay faithful and monogamous till death do they part. He treats the potential downsides of marriage as guaranteed and the upsides as if they don't exist at all, but they do.
Here's the problem with Matt Walsh's logic here. And again, these statistics are hard because they're surveys and like a lot of them is asking people things. But when you look at the divorce rates, there's varying different divorce rates. And I didn't pull them up for the case of this video because I've talked about them ad nauseum so many times. I'm not going to pull it up again. But I think first marriage is around 30 to 35%, maybe 40%. Second marriage is probably closer to 50%. And if you try getting married for a third time, it's close to 70%. So let's just use the one marriage case. 30% of marriages just end, but 70% make it. Then you look at the OnlyFools content creators. Who are the biggest subscribers to OnlyFools? 80% of it is married men. That's men with a dead bedroom. What percentage of men don't get the access to the bedroom anymore? What percentage of men stay married out of fear of losing half their assets and maybe losing custody of the kids? People like Matt and everybody else, they never talk about those statistics. They just say, well, yes, but, yes, women may file for divorce 70% of the time. And yes, 90% if they're educated. And yes, 60% of women are all now educated, which means 60% of women get divorced 90% of the time. And yes, they'll leave you because you're bored, but that's only 30% of the cases. What about the other 70%? And the point they never talk about is 70% of men end up, not all 70% of men end up staying married. How many of them are miserable? How many of them are just there so they don't lose half their crap? How many of them are still in it because the kids are not out of the house yet and the man doesn't want to lose custody? How many of them know the woman would be bitter enough or angry enough to make a case against him with the cops so that he has to not only get divorced, not only lose custody, but have to pay extra child support just because she wanted extra money? And all she had to do is tell a little lie that he liked to tip back a couple too many drinks on Friday night and raise the hand or bring his voice up too loud. And if she says that, she gets an extra 50% custody. And because he loses custody. All of that is in that 70% of men that stay married. A lot of it. The guys that go to OnlyFools because they don't get any bedroom. All of that is in that 70%. Now, on the low side, let's just say that out of that 70% of men, only 20 or 30% of those guys will have a dead bedroom or will have a wife that gains too much weight and isn't attractive to them anymore, or she doesn't turn into a harpy that drives you crazy, or she doesn't cheat on you and you don't find out, or you don't end up in a love. Okay, let's just say that's 20 or 30%. That means 30% of men get divorced. We'll just say 30% of the remaining men are in a relationship that's not great for them. That really only leaves 40, and I think it's smaller than 40%, 30% of men that end up in being in a marriage that is okay. It's good. It can be all the guys from very good down to it's okay, but I kind of don't wish I were here anymore. If that's 30 or 40% of the men, those are the guys that know there's a problem. But what about the guys that don't know there's a problem, where the wife he's happy, everything's good, but in the meantime, she's out at work hooking up with her boss, or she says she's going out on a girls' night out hooking up, but the guy's happy. He's thrilled to be married because he doesn't know anything's going wrong. When you add all these numbers up together, it's statistically more likely that you're going to end up divorced or unhappy than just staying single. Understanding your lot in life. There's not really an argument here. And that's where Matt and these other conservatives start falling apart, because their answer is, well, just do it anyway. You'll probably be all right. Come on, you'll probably be okay. Just do it anyway.
Now, I can't say what you will get out of marriage because I can't look into your future. I can't control for every possible factor. I can't force you to choose the right spouse, nor can I force you or your spouse to do all the things in a marriage that are necessary to keep it stable and happy. Most of the time when a marriage falls apart, it can be that there's one clear bad guy who did something destructive and was betrayed the marriage. That can happen. Usually when a marriage falls apart, it's because you've got two people and neither of them were doing the things necessary to keep it together. And so I can't control for that. So what you can get is the love, fidelity, and lifelong companionship of a woman who you love and who is devoted to you and to whom you are devoted in return. What you can get, what billions of men have gotten, are children you love and who love you, who carry on your legacy, your bloodline, and your family name. You can have a family that is stable and whole, one that gives you a sure sense of purpose every single day of your life, a family you live with and share your life with and serve and lead and raise. Okay, so you can get love, meaning, purpose, and legacy. That's what you can get.
Yes. Yes, you can get that. Did you know you can also fly? I mean this. I'm not being a smartass here. You can fly. You can. It would require you going up in an airplane and jumping out without a parachute. And for probably 2 to 3 minutes, depending on how high you go, you can fly for those 3 minutes. And it is exhilarating. I hear it is amazing. But what happens when you can't fly anymore? That's it. You're done. You're a big squishy puddle on the ground. What Matt's talking about is, yes, if you thread the needle, if you manage to find a woman that didn't lie to you, didn't cheat on you, didn't, etc., 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 you can do that. but they have no answer on how to find that woman or know or be assured that so what he's doing the 100 M&M test. Now, if you know the 100 M&Ms, this is an argument that's been around a long time, so I know most of you know it. I have 100 M&Ms. If you pick the right M&M, you will have a happy life. Everything will turn out great for you. But if you pick the wrong M&M and you consume it, that's it. You're over. You're put in the 6 feet under. Now, there's 80% chance you're not going to make it. But there's 20% chance you pick the right M&M and happily ever after. Do you eat the M&M? Now, men are not emotional, usually. Healthy men are not overly emotional. Healthy men are logical. And a healthy man says, you know what? I'm going to go for the in-between. I know I'm not going to get married. I know I'm not going to have kids. I'm not going to be super, super happy. I'm not going to be one of those guys. But I'm also not going to get ground into dust through a divorce and lose the custody of my children and end up eating 9 inches of Smith & Wesson. Like, I don't want to be that guy either. I'm going to play the safe route and say I'm not going to eat any of the M&Ms. And instead, I'm going to try to find my own way to be happy. Maybe it includes friends, going to the gym. I have a pet. I find hobbies. I travel the world. I gotta do something else because neither one of these options is great. Matt never has an answer other than, well, yes, but just think of the 20% M&Ms. And when you bring up the 80% M&Ms, he's like, yeah. No. I know. Yeah, I know 80% of those M&Ms will totally take you out. But just think of the 20% of M&Ms, and it is your duty to the future of humanity and society to eat that M&M. It is your duty.
So what you get or can get in a word is basically everything. But it should also be said that as men, our concern should not be only what we get. What do I get is a fair question. And if the answer were nothing, then you shouldn't do it. But it's a fair question. It should not be the only question. You need to be motivated by more than just a quest for what you get. There has to also be a sense of obligation and duty. That's what's driven every great man in history. Now, if we zoom out even further, who else stands to gain from you getting married and having children with your...
Okay, before he gets into the who else has to gain...
With your wife.
Let me just talk about this point. He says it's not just about you. It's not just about what you get. And this is the blinders. This is what I was talking about early on in the stream. These are the blinders that conservatives wear. And they say, it's not just about you. It's not just about what you get. It's your duty to a wife, to society. It's you want to pass on your bloodline. You want to do. But here's the part they always fail. They always fail to look at the other side of the equation. They look at everything as an additive. What do you gain from being married? What are the wonderful things that you have for the rest of your life by being married? And the point they never get to is, what do you lose? What do you lose by getting married? And I'm not talking about freedom. I'm not talking about the ability to bang Becky the waitress down at your local Waffle House. That's not what I'm talking about when you lose. I'm not talking about losing a night out with the boys. I'm not talking about losing wanting to go golfing once a week. As a man, it is a real, verifiable, statistically accurate, and most likely thing to say. If you get married, you will lose your wife. You will lose the person you love. You will lose at least half the custody of your children or more. You will lose a significant portion of your income. You will lose the ability to sleep with somebody. But you won't lose the ability to have to pay for half the bills for the next, 10 to 20 years. There's all those things you have to lose. And here's the irony, the little sprinkle of salt on those French fries, the icing on the cake. You also will be blamed for it. Because if a man gets tired of his marriage and he needs to explore, or he needs to want to be alone, or he wants to find himself, he's to blame for breaking up the marriage. If a man says he was bored and he wants to get divorced. It's his fault. If a man says that he needs something more exciting, he wasn't getting enough passion from his wife, it is his fault. If he says the bedroom was dead and she wasn't meeting my needs anymore, it's the man's fault. If the man works too much and isn't there to emotionally support the wife, it's his fault. If the man isn't working enough and he's there to support the woman, but not enough to pay all the bills and take care of her financially, it's the man's fault. All of it's the man's fault. Now, what happens when the woman wants to leave? I'm going to leave my husband because he's unemotionally available. Well, it's the man's fault for not being emotionally available. I'm leaving my husband because he's a deadbeat. He doesn't get clothes or pay for the house. He's going to make us homeless because he doesn't make enough money. Well, that's the men's fault. She had to leave to protect her and her children. I'm leaving the husband because I cheated on him, and because I wasn't getting my needs met in the bedroom. He didn't try hard enough. Well, that's the man's fault. Do you see that when the man leaves, it's 100% of it's his fault 100% of the time. When a woman leaves, it's because it was the man's fault 100% of the time. There is no woman that says, I cheated on my husband because I am a bad human being who has bad impulse control and I've made bad decisions with my life. Let's look at the leaderboard. How many times has this happened, Bob? Well, according to the statistics, 0 times in history has a woman said, I'm a bad person. This was totally my fault of why I left my husband. Back to you, Jim. It doesn't happen. So it's what the man will lose. It's not what the man will gain.
Now, if we zoom out even further, who else stands to gain from you getting married and having children with your wife, who you're married to? Well, I mean, everyone does. Civilization itself. You can't pretend to care about the future of Western civilization while making a choice and promoting a choice to not get married, not have children, that if everyone made it, would result in the extinction of the very thing you claim to want to preserve.
Oh, you ridiculous, silly man. Matt Walsh seems to think the only procreation that happens is when a man and woman are married, that you must find the right woman and you must marry her in order to keep the birth rates up. Spoiler alert, 50% or now more of mothers in the United States are single mothers. The statistic is catching up with or is on par in Europe, in the UK, in Australia, and maybe not all of Europe. There's still some areas, but it is happening more and more and more where the majority of mothers are now single women. You don't have to be, as a man, you don't have to be married to procreate. You need a cheap bottle of, whiskey in a backseat of a car if you're living in the year 1986. Or now you just need to be a Chad. You need to be a good-looking guy. You need to be athletic. You need to have a little money. And how do I know this? Well, let's go back to where am I? Let's go back to here for this. Here you've got a woman that was engaged to be married. She had the man. She had him picked out and was not very safe with the guy she's cheating with. And she likely got pregnant, maybe had some pregnant scares. Well, she was doing this when she wasn't married. She was doing it when she was engaged to another guy. You don't have to be married to have kids. What are you talking about? Number one. And number two, and Matt's going to mention this in a second. I'm just going to bring this up now to cut this off at the pass, okay? He says, don't you want your genes, don't you want your bloodline to continue? I asked Venice AI, and it says, based on genetic studies of human ancestry, specifically comparisons between the Y chromosome passed on to the father and son and mitochondrial DNA passed down from mother to child, the difference between male and female reproductive success throughout history is stark. Approximately 40% of men throughout human history passed on their genes compared to 80% of women. Now, they give the reasons why. Of course, there's war and there's conflict. And, of course, you have the when populations are out of skew, it's one man can get 100 women pregnant, where 100 women can't get one man pregnant. So you need women. You need the overwhelming number of women. And they even mentions in here, when there was a specific period in time when the numbers were far more extreme, around 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, during our transition to agriculture, human genetic diversity on the male side crashed. Meaning there was approximately one male that passed on his genes to 17 women that did, meaning one man got 17 women pregnant, or that it might have been more than that. But 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, only one guy was spreading his genes versus 17 women. And now in modern times, taking together war and everything else that's happening, only about 40% of men send on their genes. So this argument of, oh, but, get out of here. Most people did not share or send on their genetic material. And when they did, it was only 40% of men. And in times of Genghis Khan and others, it was, well, what do we say? The top 3 or 5% of men ended up having the vast majority. These guys would have harems of women. It did happen. So trying to pull on a man's heartstrings saying, don't you want your genes to pass on? Don't you want to have... My dude, the women leave. The women pack their bags and leave. So yes, you can watch your genealogy, your son or daughter that you've passed your genes on. You can watch them leave with mom. And in the meantime, mom's brainwashing them and twisting their minds to make you seem like you're the bad guy. And so your genes grow up to be an adult that hates you. They only look at things from one angle. They never look at all the angles.
Now, I'm not saying that your primary motivation for getting married should be the preservation of Western civilization or the continuation of your bloodline. Like, no human being is going to be foremost personally motivated by that. But these are benefits, and they're really important ones. Why should we get married and have kids? Well, if we don't, civilization collapses, the human race goes extinct, and nothing matters because nothing will exist anymore. That seems like a relevant point.
I got news for you. Africans are still popping out like 7 kids per. Middle Easterners are popping out, 4, 5, 6, 7 kids per woman. It's not going to be the collapse of civilization. It might be the collapse of Western modernized civilization, but the human race will go on in some collective mishmash of craziness. And yes, society may collapse. It may collapse anyway. How am I, a man that might want, and I use this, not me personally, I'm just saying this out loud. How am I, a man that wants a family and wants to keep a healthy civilization together? How can I do that when I'm at the bottom of the totem pole? That because I am a white, straight male, everybody hates me. And the notch above that might be Latino guys or, Latino straight males or black straight males. Because if you listen to these feminists that are yelling at some of these officers or police officers or ICE officers or government agents, they don't care what color the men are. They're just calling the men evil and toxic. I do remember hearing the phrase toxic masculinity. That's been popular for the last 5 years. You know what I didn't hear? Toxic white masculinity. I mean, I heard it a little bit, but not really. They didn't segregate it like that. I didn't hear any toxic black masculinity. A little bit, again, but not so much. I don't hear a lot of toxic Asian masculinity. They just say toxic masculinity. They lump all men into a boat. So if that's how they view that, and the world is becoming overly feminized and overly feminist, how am I as an individual supposed to fix this, Matt Walsh? Now, the way I've chosen to do it is put out men's content. But when you even have conservatives and people like, I don't know, our president, many of our senators that will get in on board with the feminist dogma and dogpile on how men are all these awful things, there's nothing I can do as an individual to fix it. Even as a group, even if you got 10 million or 20 million men in the United States, and their goal was to fix this. And they tried to vote for the right people to put them in the right positions. Well, it's still not going to fix it. So as an individual, the only way you can protect yourself as an individual is to not take part in the circus. Not my circus, not my clowns. I have no control over it. The only option you have is to avoid it all, because there's no changing this from our level. We're just fleas on the back of the dog. That's really what we are at this point. And no matter how much chewing and biting, you're not going to change the direction of the dog. And so guys have just said, I'm just going to protect myself.
It's not irrelevant. It's like we could talk about what a better plan is, but it can't be that. It can't be the thing where if too many of us do it, everything collapses and everyone dies and there's no more humans left. And yet, yes, there are still risks. There are risks I've already acknowledged. Risk that you can't protect yourself from with 100% certainty. But you can account for these risks to a very significant extent.
See, this is where Matt gets in trouble again. Listen to what he says, okay? Now, he takes the most hyper-aggressive, most obvious warning signs. But listen to what he just said. There are things you can do to mitigate this. And this is what goes all the way back to the scandal. So we're going to do a full circle here. I'm going to let him finish, and then we're going to go back to the scandal. And that's how we'll wrap things up.
We could put laws in place to account for them, like we just talked about. You know, it is possible that a truly sociopathic, devious con artist could scam you into getting married to them while expertly disguising their true nature. That could happen, but in the vast majority of cases, there are extremely obvious red flags that someone is untrustworthy and disloyal. You know, things like if she's spending a lot of personal time with her male boss or any other man, for one thing. As soon as you're dating this woman, she should no longer be maintaining any kind of intimate personal relationships with other men or spending any one-on-one time with other men at all. And if she's doing that, that's a problem. And if you express that it's a problem to her and she's not willing to give that up for you, leave.
He forgets one key thing here. You'd have to know it's happening. Apparently, Matt forgets that women can lie and women can deceive you. He forgets that during his diatribe here, his monologue. He forgets. She could be lying to you.
That's all you need. You're gone. If she seems to enjoy the attention of men who are not you while you're in a relationship with her, that's a red flag. If she's an e-girl begging for attention online all the time, that's a red flag. These are all things that are fairly obvious. And you can identify them and suss them out if you keep your eyes open. And yet risks do remain, even in spite of that. I acknowledge that. But here's the thing. There are also risks on the other side. Risks to rejecting marriage and family life. I mean, the reality is that the vast majority of men who don't get married will not end up with a harem of attractive women. They'll end up alone, lonely, no wife, no children, and little in the way of financial success anyway.
I love how he has to paint such a gloomy, bad picture. Now, I'm going to play this out the rest of the way. Then we're going to come back, and I'm going to shred everything he's saying. But we'll do that in just a second.
Because most people are not financially successful. Most people who reject marriage will die broke and alone anyway. And they might, but choosing a bad fate that is almost certain because you fear a bad fate that is merely possible is, you want to talk about logic, illogical. You know, for almost every man, fatherhood and marriage are a vocation given by God to lead, provide for, and love his own family. And you shouldn't let anything or anyone scare you away from it. Now, you can avoid the Sarah Stocks of the world by abandoning the very idea of marriage. And if you're a woman, you can avoid the Elijah Schafers by doing the same. But years from now, when you're on your deathbed, surrounded by no one, with no one to mourn you, and no one to carry on your legacy and bloodline, or even place flowers on your grave, will you feel relieved that at least you were never divorced? Will you be happy about the chance you didn't take? Or will you wish that you had given yourself to someone and created a family that would outlive you? Because what was any of it for, if not for that?
I love the emotional plea at the end of this. What about, don't you want somebody to put flowers on your grave? I'll be dead. I won't know. Let me play this last minute and a half out again. I'm going to shred all of this, and then we'll loop back up and we'll close this up here. We just got a few minutes left here, but
sure, that could happen. But in the vast majority of cases, there are extremely obvious red flags that someone is untrustworthy and disloyal.
Now, his red flags, all of it requires, everything Matt's going to tell you right here, requires you to know the truth. That's, once again, blinders. Matt assumes a woman that you're dating or married is going to be, truthful with you. And what he doesn't understand is the number of women that cheat, and men do it too. I'm not saying men are free of doing this, but statistically now, because women don't get penalized, because women can get the cash and prizes on the way out the door after a divorce, women are much more aggressively cheating and lying because their penalties are essentially zero. And men are on a much smaller rate are not cheating and not lying, because if they get caught, they lose everything. So Matt's first assumption is you know the truth, and that's where the rest of it just falls apart.
Yeah, things like if she's spending a lot of personal time with her male boss or any other man, for one thing. As soon as you're dating this woman, she should no longer be maintaining any kind of intimate personal relationships with other men.
Okay. This is a fair point. Once you're dating a woman or once you're involved with a woman, she should no longer be spending a lot of time with her male boss. That's what he specifically says. And she shouldn't have male friends. Okay, let's play this out. I'm a 26-year-old guy. I decide to date a 26-year-old woman. She's been out of college a couple of years. She has a job. She's like most modern women. She's making her own income. And she's going to work today. Today's Monday. She's going to work. Honey, do you work with any men? Oh, yeah, there's men on the team, and my boss is a man. You have to quit. What do you mean I have to quit? You work with men. Your boss is a man. I cannot allow you to work with or under a man. You must quit. Does that relationship go anywhere? I mean, honestly. Or does she call you some weirdo, misogynist Andrew Tate fan and she break up with you? So you can't say that to her. But she admits she works with a man and she works with other men. Now she goes off to work. She's in meetings with these guys. Maybe she has lunch with a male coworker. You don't know. You're at your job. You're not spying on her. You don't have a tracker on her phone because you'd be some weirdo stalker guy. So you don't know what she's doing. Now, she comes home. Is she dating a guy from work behind your back? Is she have a work husband or an office guy that she's sleeping with because they take a lunch break and they go get a hotel? It happens. Let's not pretend this doesn't happen. It happens so much, I 100% know it happens because it's happened to multiple coworkers of mine in multiple different business. One, I worked for a financial company. The assistant manager was hooking up with one of the workers. We all knew it. They'd disappear for lunch. We assumed they were getting a hotel. We knew it was happening. And it didn't just happen there. It happened at other jobs. I won't get into all the details. Me, idiot, out in the middle of the woods doing a YouTube channel, has seen it firsthand. If I've seen it firsthand, hundreds of thousands or millions of you have as well. But the guy at home doesn't know because she's not going to go home and say, guess what, honey? Today for lunch, I had a ham sandwich and Joey's balls in my mouth. That's not how that goes. So you end up not knowing. Number two, how do you know she's hooking up with a boss? We've got this really big project going on right now. I got to stay late at the office, just a couple of hours. I'll be missing dinner. I won't be home at like the usual 5:30. I'll be home closer to 7. I'm working late. Well, you have to quit your job, honey. You can't work late. I will not allow you to work late. Okay, that relationship goes nowhere. You're a weirdo, nutso guy. Instead, you say, all right, well, what project is it? It's just, it's my normal work. I'm just, okay, I guess I'll see you at 7:30. And in the meantime, she's in the boss's car, cleaning his belly button with her chin or something. You can't control a woman enough to know, because if you tried, you're nuts. And if you try, that means you don't have any trust in your partner. So Matt's argument is, if she's sleeping with her boss, don't be with that woman. Well, no shit. If she goes to the gym and she works out, do I have to follow her to the gym? What if she makes a guy friend at the gym, Matt? What if she makes a guy friend and she likes hanging out with him at the gym? And then when they're done with their workout, for 10 minutes, she decides to ride on him in the passenger seat of a car. I'd never know about it. But do I know about male friends? So the telltale signs he uses are blatant and in your face. Oh, she works on the internet. She's one of these e-girls, whatever. Well, yeah, I'm no kidding. I'm not going to date her. Oh, she stays late at work because she says she wants to hang out with her single hot male boss. Well, I probably shouldn't date a woman like that. No kidding. Congratulations, rocket scientist. But the reason he can't use any other example is what makes this so damning. Because the perfect woman, quote unquote, perfect woman, Sarah Stock, conservative, Christian, church-going, got blessed by the Pope, said she was holding on to her V card until she got married. The perfect unicorn girl lied and slept like a baby. Did it with a smile on her face and slept like a baby. And that's why this is such a big, awful, horrible scandal. Because it proves us right 100% that there's no way to tell or catch them or screen them. There's no way to protect yourself as a man. You can do literally everything right, find yourself a unicorn, only to find out it doesn't have one horn, it has two horns, two devil horns, and you got suckered. And I won't replay this, but the last part Matt says is, on your deathbed, don't you want to be surrounded by people that love you, holding your hand, watching you slip into the great beyond, knowing that you've left behind all of this wonderfulness? And as a single man, you don't make much money, and you're going to be alone and broke and destitute. No one's going to be around to put flowers on your grave. Number one, when they survey people of who makes more money, and they talk about married men versus single men, the married men make more money for two reasons. Number one, they work harder to make sure they make enough money to provide for the family. And this is the part they don't tell you about. Number two, the single men make less. Did you know they count a divorced man as a single man? A divorced man is counted as a single man. Therefore, a guy that is going through a divorce, having to give a crap ton of his money to an unfaithful ex-wife and money for child support to those kids, yeah, he's broke more than just a single guy. He's broke because she's getting all his money. He counts as a single guy. I'd like to see the statistics if you remove divorced men from the single man category and who has more money at that point. Because in my argument would be they're probably a lot closer together, or the single guy has more money. Or if he doesn't have more money, he's spending it on things he wants instead of the kids and the wife. Spoiler alert, when you're married, you don't get to just buy your wife a cupcake on Valentine's Day, and you don't get to have your 10th anniversary and just give her a Hallmark card. That's where the diamond bracelets and the diamond rings and the fancy trips and the special, like, don't even get me going down that road. We've already talked about the passing your genes on, but what happens if she divorces you, takes the kids, poisons the kids against you to hate you, and for the rest of their lives, they hate daddy and thinks he's a deadbeat dad because mom lied. They never talk. The Matt Walshes never talk about that. And the flowers on the grave and all the rest of it, that's pulling at heartstrings. You won't know it. You won't be here anymore. And lastly, most of the time, when you get older, my father was married to my mother for close to 60 years. Same thing with my grandfather. Same thing with my uncle and my aunt. And right now, my uncle is still alive. My aunt passed. My aunt collapsed. And she got very sick. And she ended up, they found out she had cancer. And the last week of her life, she did get taken to the hospital, but she slipped into a coma, and they had her on meds to make sure she was comfortable. And they didn't do it at the house. I guess they could have probably brought in hospice. My aunt died of cancer, but she passed out. There wasn't this holding hands and watching the family gather around you. It was, honey, I don't feel so good. Rush her to the hospital, put her in a bed, put her on pain meds. She's out. You could have had Barnum and Bailey Circus marching through her ER room. She wouldn't have known they're there. She's gone already. So this, holding your hands and looking at the loved ones in the room, that's not how it happens. My grandmother went to the hospital because she had pneumonia. Actually, she had Bell's palsy, and the left side of her face got paralyzed. They took her into the hospital for tests. She got the tests, and then she got pneumonia when she was in the hospital. And my mom was with her, but they didn't want my grandfather to go visit her because she had pneumonia, and they didn't want him to get pneumonia. Now, my mom was much younger at the time, so my mom went to visit my grandmother in the hospital. Us kids, and I know I'm going on a diatribe here, but I'm getting to my point. I lived in Florida at the time. My grandmother was in New York. So my mom visited my grandmother. My grandfather didn't, because they didn't want his old ass catching pneumonia. So she died from pneumonia alone at the hospital in the middle of the night with nobody around. And my grandfather couldn't go visit her. Same thing happened with my dad when he passed away. He ended up collapsing in the driveway. He had a stroke. They were going to a doctor's appointment, my mom and dad. He walked around to the passenger side of the car. My mom looked over. He's gone. Where is he? She went over. He's passed out on the floor, crumpled up like a tissue paper. She gets the neighbors to help. She calls an ambulance. They pick my 87, 86, whatever he was, 88. They get my 87-year-old father up. They get him to the hospital. The last thing he remembers is walking around the passenger side of the car. And then, boop, lights out. Blew a fuse. He was gone. My mother visited him. My sister did. I was in Montana at the time. I couldn't visit. He didn't remember. There was no hand squeezing and, I love you. Thank you for giving me the family that I've always wanted. You're amazing. I've had such a fulfilled life. Nah, it's like he had a sandwich. He had a glass of milk. He walked out to the car, lights out, it's over. All this touchy crap, it doesn't work. Until people realize the reality of relationships, it's all feel-good BS. It's not going to change. It's out of your control. You can be the perfect man with the perfect story and the perfect life and think you've got the perfect woman, and she passed all the red flags, nothing but green flags here on out. And in the meantime, she's banging a guy behind your back, maybe getting pregnant by him. All the things we've talked about. It's a fool's game. It's a fool's game. The only way you win this game is maybe not get married. Have a few good girlfriends in your life. If you're going to have a kid, maybe adopt one, maybe get a surrogate. Do something where you know you will have full custody and you're not at the whims of a woman. Maybe go to another country. I don't know, Poland or Thailand or who knows. I don't even know where it's good to be a passport bro now. But the thing is, you're going to have to stay there. There's no guarantees. And that's what makes this scandal so bad, is it blows a hole in every, just look for green flags. Just find a church girl. It's all out. It's gone. You've run out of excuses. Conservatives have no leg to stand on. It's just it. All right, let me read the last couple of chats here, and then we'll call it a day. Let's see what we got. Okay, I guess I can only go so far back. I hate that YouTube, Rumble Studio only lets me go so far back. Bobak says you're more likely to find a wife 300 years ago in a brothel than today in a church. Changed my mind. I cannot argue that. I cannot argue that. And ironically, 300 years ago, that brothel woman would have probably had a lower body count than most women that go out to the bar on Friday night. Roughneck says, I think the big red flag here is that women attention-seeking, trying to be a RW trad e-girl now. Most women who are right-wing are not looking to have online presence, are the ones you got to get. It's not a damning piece against churchgoers or right-wing women. It's damnation against online ones and those seeking the online clout. Yes, that's true. I agree with that, but that protects you only from part of it. What happens when she gets bored and she meets the hot guy down at the gym or the hot guy at the grocery store that ignores the ring on her finger and starts flirting with her, and she gives in to temptation because she's bored? That's the problem. Skyline says $5. If she made you wait until marriage, she doesn't like you enough. That's how women are. What matters? That's how women are. What matters is how obedient she is to you. No submission, no rings. Avoid educated professionals. Yes, but again, our scandal is a woman that was dedicated and the rest of it. And it's a catch-22. Bosny says, most enraging, hurtful, and yet truthful meme about cheating women is, no matter how much she cries and apologizes after, remember that she smiled, giggled, and put it back in when it slipped out when the other guy was riding her. Truer words were never said. Roughneck says, women lie and water's wet. No hymen, no diamond. Well, but this guy thought he was getting one. This guy thought he was getting one in this scandal. He thought he was getting a pure woman. She wasn't. She lied. There's no protecting yourself. That's the crazy part. Steamboat says, I knew I should just kidnap a woman and make her my wife. She's just going to be chained up to me. I think you mean that. I know you mean that literally, you weirdo. Skyline says, it's $5. Thank you. Spreading legs for random hot guys is not in women's nature. Why would Muslims have restricted it through stoning? Take the red pill. Well, I mean, there's a reason why Bibles and history has told us to be very careful of women's nature. They knew. They tried to warn us. Skyline also says the best thing to treat women like rental and lease cars, because that's how they see men. No matter what she says, everything she says is based on her feelings, not commitment. Feelings change. True. And he says, just make a documentary for X. What is a woman for a man? I write like a 4-year-old. I couldn't write a documentary. Ice Dragon said, Matt is too busy trying to ban anime, video games, and spicy movies. He's got no time to fix marriage laws. True. Roughneck says, the most stable and best way to have children is being married. Single moms raise crappy kids. Your argument doesn't hold up. No, the best way to be stable and have the best way to have, wait, let me correct this. The most stable and best way to have children is being married. Agreed. But the best way and to definitely have a kid as a father is to adopt or have a surrogate. That's the best way to protect yourself for that. Because you could be married and the woman can change your mind and take the kid and out you go. Thanks for the $1 Roughneck. Appreciate it. Noba Fan says if the number of men and women being terrible marriage partners was swapped, he would go full dictator shaming men. Wait, he does that already when too many women are terrible people. Agreed. Roughneck says if her breath okay, I'm not going to read that one on YouTube. Thank you for the $1 Roughneck. I agree with you, but I'm not going to read that one. These are over on, for those of you on YouTube, these are chats that are over on Locals and Rumble that if I said that on YouTube, not only would they demonetize the video, they'd probably ban my channel. Call me on Leon on Fire. So what do you do after the wedding night when there's no hymen, you can't give her back? Ding, ding, ding. Exactly. And Mike says, only fools coming. Yeah, that's how a lot of these conservatives go. All right, let me see if I missed anything on the YouTube side that I can still see. Unfortunately, YouTube does the same thing where it disappears. Okay, we got some. Thank you, guys. I just want to make through the chat here. I appreciate all of you sending your love, and I want to give you the credit for doing so. Let's see, where did I leave off? Women. I think I read that one. Yeah, I read that one. Let's see. John says, when your paycheck is tied to pleasing women, he can't say the things. They rule both parties. True. Because I still believe that anywhere you see any conservative, if you see it, Now, if you go to your mailbox and run into a conservative woman, she might be conservative. If you see her on X or on Instagram or on YouTube doing conservative stuff, she's not conservative. She's looking for validation and attention and whatever. Conservative women do not exist on the internet. Dustin Kennel says $10. Thank you very much, sir. Chad Twizzler says $5. Tradcucks will never stop simping. In the words of Cappy, they just pee into the hurricane. Deep down, it's because they think women are sugar and spice. Yeah, I think too many people give women too much credit. I mean, just look at the modern women. They look you in the eye as they tell you. Jeremiah says $5. Thank you, sir. Just tuning in. So glad you responded to this one. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. Draven says, or Dry Raven. Sorry, I'm trying to do my best. Using Walsh's argument, Russian roulette with 4 in the wheel, perfectly acceptable because it isn't 100%. That's exactly a good way to put that. Marriage is Russian roulette, or a happy marriage, or staying married. Maybe we just put it this way. Being in a happy marriage is like Russian roulette with 4 in the wheel. I like that. That is a quote. Quote worthy, sir. The mail, I don't know why it's not showing the full names here for some reason. Let me stretch this out. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. Let me see if I can zoom it in. The mail REI, I guess. Maybe I'm missing the last end of that. Sorry about it. $10. Matt Walsh talks about duty. Great. He's taking notes from Andrew Wilson, who also has no answers other than just man up and similar tripe. Question. Maybe some of you can answer this. Didn't Andrew Wilson marry a woman that already had kids? I'm pretty sure she already had kids, right? Now, I like Andrew Wilson. I listen to his debates. I have nothing against him personally. I'm not saying this is a personal attack against him. But I do think he married a single mom, right? Pretty sure about that. Let's see. Smalley William says, Smalley William is bear. Father was bear. Small William is proud. Mauricio says, Matt's Bible even, thanks for 5. Matt's Bible even says it's better to live in the wilderness than be in a big house with a quarrelsome woman. What about it, Matt? Well, you got to pick the right woman. Don't pick a quarrelsome one. It's so easy to pick. Patrick says, I'm so tired. Chief, so tired. Being single is the only way to be safe. Agreed. ABCD says, Ayo, you're going to blow them away. Gay. You know what I mean. Mail Ray says, Matt Walsh, take the ticket, become a Judeo-Christian, get tall, grow a beard, play banjo, smoke cigars, wear flannel, become wealthy, but also have no expectations for women to have moral agency on the same level as a man. Women cannot have the same moral agency as a man because women are not punished for their bad moral choices. Men are always punished for our bad moral choices. So a woman can never be on the same agency as a man. It's just impossible. Mercurico says, told you so, Biden divorces you. Fuzzbrain says, you're forgetting a major point here, Joker. If you say she can't have guy friends, you will be labeled as a controlling and narcissist. No, I did mention that. And that's what I'm saying. If you say you can't have male friends, you can't have male coworkers or work late at night with male coworkers or a male boss, they'll think you're crazy. Like New York Post will write stories about you, how men now think their wives shouldn't work with other men. Like, you'd be the bad guy. So you'll never know. You'll never know. Journey says, how do you get a wife with no one is raising girls to be wives? I got a button for that, too.
Ding, ding, ding. What do we have for her, Johnny?
Well, exactly. No one's ever talking to the women to be better women. They're just trying to tell men how to pick better women. And men are saying there's not enough good women. That's the $1 million question. That's that nobody has an answer to. Nobody is teaching women how to treat men. No one is telling women how to serve man. No one is telling women how to be a correct, proper wife for a man. We're not having those discussions. We're just always talking about what men are doing wrong or how men need to pick better. We're not doing the other side of the conversation. That's a problem. He also says you can't expect the Western world to no longer. You can't expect the Western world no longer practices the values of the past. The 80s and the mid 90s was the last time people had happy marriages. I don't know, Matt Walsh, I think he said he's been married something like 15 years, which means he got married in 2010, and he has like 6 kids. He's done a great job. And but, you know, lightning can strike the same spot twice every once in a while. You know, the odds of dying in a plane crash are next to nothing, and yet we every once in a while hear about plane crashes going down with lots of people on board. Steven Crowder used to talk the same way that Matt Walsh does, and then he became a statistic. He got divorced. He realized he picked the wrong woman. She put him on social media blast. She tried to take him for child custody and money, and he said, oh, well, yeah, actually, these guys, maybe these red pill guys have, maybe they're on the right, maybe they got something here. They'll never know unless they go through it. The problem is this guy, I keep forgetting his name, this Setka guy that married Sarah, he thought he did the right thing, and he lost. He chose poorly, and then he took a sip from the goblet and disappeared into dust. He's who I really feel sorry for. Let's see. Bosny says 3 possibilities for Sarah Strock. Comeback. 1, apologies. Claims Schaefer seduced her, not her fault. She's going to have a problem with that because the seduction ran on for 6 more months. She can't claim that one. 1 is out. Number 2 comes back as left-wing commentator, pro-bedroom, pro-anti-baby deletion, anti-right wing. That is a possibility. 3, only fools. That is the largest possibility. I think her comeback tour will be a lot of, I was manipulated, I was stupid, I prayed to the Lord, he reached out to me, I'm on my journey of healing, I'm on my journey of she will find a way to grift it back towards, I found Jesus a second time, and I was manipulated by the devil, also known as Elijah Schaefer. The last thing she's going to do is go, my bad. We just know that's not going to happen. My bad. I think she's going to double down on the Lord in this case. Ispep says $10. Thank you, sir. Would you love to see the comments in Matt's YouTube on this video in a day or two? You know, I could probably pull it up right now and read it, but we're already going long. But yes, go read it for good entertainment. I'm sure. Daifichu says $10. I met a really good woman from overseas. She was a virgin when we got married. A great wife for the first few years. I brought her back to Canada.
What the hell is even that?
You shouldn't have done that one, buddy. You cannot bring a good woman back from another country, introduce them to the West. Now, I haven't read the rest of your chat yet, so maybe you said she stayed with me and everything turned out great. Regularly, she finds feminism and then she'll leave you. Okay, let's read the rest of his chat. I brought her back to Canada and she became a Marxist and took our daughter away from me.
Hey, she is well traveled.
Oops, I hit 2 buttons. I meant this one.
She is well traveled, and I don't mean she travels a lot.
I called that one, didn't I? You can't do that. You can't. If you meet one of these small town Filipino or Asian or Thai women, you got to stay there. That's the rest of your life. You stay in that tiny town. Hopefully, you have enough money. You don't ever have to work again. You marry her. You grow up in a hut. You live in a hut. You stay there. That's the only way that's going to work. Mickey says, we'll catch live later. Have a good one, buddy. Transmission to drop. All right, good. And Hedgehog, can you imagine if your wife worked somewhere, all women, the company would fold in no time? Well, that's how it goes. All right, gang. We are done with live chat. We are done with the stream. We're done. I'm tired of talking to you guys. Had enough of you. Wow, we're at 2 hours. All right, that's a good long stream. All right, gang, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for the live tips. Guys, protect yourselves. If the only takeaway you take from all of this is you can find a unicorn and it's really just it's a horse that is painted white and it's got a high heel sticking out of its forehead for the horn. Like, there's no unicorns. It just doesn't exist.